In today's tutorial, we will learn how to use the Develop tool. Designed for photographers who shoot and edit in non-RAW format, the Develop tool allows you to apply the basic development to your images. I will show you how to adjust your white balance as well as the light adjustments to prepare the image for further editing. Starting from the beginning, let's look at the definition of the Develop tool. Now, as you know, in photography, every exceptional image begins with a solid foundation. And this is where the Aperty's Develop tool provides a crucial starting point for the development process. Used by photographers who use or edit images in non-RAW formats like JPEG, PNG, TIFF, and more, this powerful tool provides essential controls for development and basic adjustments. These controllers allow you to adjust your white balance and also the light features like exposure, contrast, highlights and shadows, and whites and blacks. It's always a good idea to start with the development tool to refine the image and transform it before you continue to some of those more advanced and creative tools. Moving into the application where we already looking at the sample file in the editing module. Now here goes a quick reminder that if you want to follow me along and do the edit on your own computer, then jump into the description of this video, follow the link there and download the sample file now. Import it into the application and we can start. So we have the image here and as you can see it's in JPEG format. Now to access the Develop tool, we need to go into our main editing toolbar where we're gonna click on the icon with the 3 sliders on it. Once we do that, the Essentials panel will open. Here is a number of tools used for the basic development, including our Develop tool, curves, color, black and white, sharpen, detail, structure, and noise reduction. Now coming back to our Develop tool, let's just click on it to open it. Once we open it, we can see 2 sections. One focusing on white balance and the other one focusing on light. So let's start by describing the different sliders and controllers in this tool, starting with the white balance. Here we can adjust the temperature and tint of the image. Using the standard Develop tool and editing JPEG, there will be no presets here. When you click on that, you will notice that there is only the S-Shot option, so we don't have to worry about that. However, next to the drop-down box, we have this little eyedropper. We will now be able to hover over the image and pick a neutral target to set our white balance. Now, in general, we recommend to pick gray or white areas. Well, ideally, you would have a gray card there, but we don't have one, so let's go ahead and select, let's say, a brighter area like this one here. Now, looking at the image, when picking up the area, you would like to pick up an area with the midtones. You don't want a super bright area or super dark area. So somewhere around here is the midtone. So we're gonna do that. And once we click on this area, the application will automatically adjust the white balance. Coming back to our tools, you can see that it increased the temperature and lowered the tint. But we can try again if we want to. We can again select the eyedropper and hover over the image. Let's select another area. So let's say here. And when we click, you can see that the image is less warmer, adjusting only the temperature to -1. So the eyedrop tool is not necessarily used too much for the JPEGs. However, I still want you to know what it's for. Now moving on our sliders, we have the temperature and tint. The temperature slider allows us to make the image warmer by dragging the slider towards the right side or cooler by dragging it towards the left. You can go really crazy by going all the way to -100 or go super warm the other way around. Now remember that all the sliders in Aperty can be resetted by simply double-clicking on their name. So let's do that and move on to tint. Following the colors on the tint, you could already be able to say what it does. Well, basically, you take the slider and by increasing the amount and moving it towards the right, you will add magenta and remove a green tint. And when you go the other way around, you will remove the magenta and add green tint to your image. So if we double click on it, again, we can reset it. Now, looking at the image itself, there is actually lots of green tint there. So if we want to, we can apply a little bit of that magenta there, maybe just around 10. Moving on, moving into the light section. Here we have the traditional controllers: exposure, contrasts, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Now, when I'm adjusting these controllers, I quite often like to see a histogram, just to see what I'm doing and use it as a guide for the adjustments. So to see the histogram, we need to right-click on the image and select Show Histogram. Once we do that, the histogram will appear on the top of the Essentials panel. If you can't see it, just click on the little triangle in front or the name of the histogram. When it appears, you can click on it and navigate through the different types of histogram. What we're looking for is the luminosity histogram, which is this one right here. So once we keep it here, we can go ahead and adjust our light tools. So with exposure, let's start with that. When we shift it up, you will notice that the histogram turns and moves towards the right. When we shift it the other way around, you can see that it moves towards the left. Now, ideally, I'm looking for a similar size of the different peaks. So let's say this one is quite high. We don't want to go crazy, but I think somewhere around 0.44 will make it a little bit more balanced. After that, we have the contrast. So with the contrast, we basically can increase it by moving it towards the right or decrease it by moving it towards left. Now the contrast slider, all it does, it takes an area that are bright and makes them brighter, and areas that are dark and makes them darker. So more contrast, bigger difference between these areas. Less contrast, less difference between these areas. Super simple. But looking at our histogram, again, when we increase the contrast, you will notice that it will help us to balance the two different peaks. And in general, more contrast will create a bigger gap between the two different peaks, and less contrast will bring them closer. But for our case and this image, again, looking for the balance, I think somewhere around 10 will work very well. After this, we're going to adjust our highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. When adjusting these four controllers, I quite often like to bring the clipping mask. Now, we can do that by clicking on the little circles on our histogram, or we can simply hit J on our keyboard. By doing that, we now have the clipping mask available. Now, let's have a look at the image. You see the red overlay here. Those are the areas that are completely bright and white and overexposed. So there is no data there. Now, how can we adjust this? Well, we're going to use highlights and whites. Highlights adjust the brightness of the brightest parts of the image. So, naturally, if this is too bright, we need to take the highlights and bring them down to make the highlights darker. Or, of course, the other way around and make them brighter. It's up to you. However, for our image, we need to bring them down. So somewhere around here. Now, on this image itself, there isn't an area which is underexposed or super dark. Well, let me just show you how it looks. When we bring down the blacks and shadows, you will start to see the blue overlay. Well, the blue overlay indicates an areas that are completely underexposed, black, and again have no data there. However, when I reset the sliders, you will notice that there are none of these dark areas here. Still, we're going to take the shadow slider and we're going to open it just a little bit. Again, keep an eye on the actual histogram. So very gently to 10. And then we're going to adjust our whites and blacks. The whites and blacks adjust the sides of the histogram. So the whites here, when we're going to take them and we're going to increase them, it will push the histogram towards the right. When we're going to bring the whites down, it will push the histogram away from the right side. Now we already have lots of whites there, so I think just a touch, maybe somewhere around 5. With the blacks, it does exactly the same, but on the other side of the histogram. When I make them darker, it will push the data towards the left and make the image darker. And when I go the other way around, it will push the data away from the left and make the image brighter. Now, looking at the image, I think actually we could bring a little bit of that peak towards the left side. So I think -20 will work quite well. And that's about it. So looking back at our controllers, white balance, adjusting the temperature, warmth or coolness of the image, and tint, adjusting the magenta or green tint in the image. When we're talking about white exposure, adjust the overall brightness of the image. Contrast, increase or decrease the contrast between the different parts of the image. Dark parts darker, brighter parts brighter. Highlights and shadows. Highlights, adjust the brighter parts of the image, making them darker or brighter. And shadow slider, adjust the darker parts of the image, making them, again, brighter or darker. And finally, the whites and blacks, adjust the parts of the histogram on either side, basically adjusting the super dark areas and super bright areas. Finally, to switch off the clipping mask, hit J again. And a quick reminder that if you're looking for a saturation adjustments, for that you need to open the color tool. Here you will be able to find adjustments like vibrance, saturation, and remove color cast in combination with the traditional HSL adjustments where you can adjust the hue shift or individually the hue, saturation, and luminance for the dominant colors in the image. Now, before we're going to finish, just a quick reminder that this tutorial is powered by our brand new Professional Portrait LUT bundle. This brand new bundle is focusing on portrait editing, and it will allow you to use the 170 expertly crafted LUTs to quickly and easily adjust your portrait photos. Now, this bundle is of course compatible with the Aperty software, but you can also use it with Luminar Neo, Lightroom Classic, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Code, and so much more. Now, to get the best possible price for the Professional Portrait LUT bundle, simply follow the link in the description of this video. And to find out more about it, head to our website cleverphotographer.com. And that's the end of today's tutorial. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like and share it. And if you have any question about today's topic or about Aperty, then write it in the comment section under this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss on any of our future content focusing on Aperty and Luminar Neo. For today, my name is Jakub and I can't wait to see you in the next video.